So if you would have bought $100 worth of Bitcoin 7 years ago, how much would that be worth today? That number will surprise you. So everybody had that one friend 5, 10 years ago that told them to buy Bitcoin, that told them about Bitcoin, and they were like, what is Bitcoin? You did a little research on it. It all sounded like a big scam, and it really made no sense why I would buy Bitcoin. I actually had a friend tell me about Bitcoin about 6, 7 years ago, and they're like, dude, this Bitcoin thing is going huge. My friend was a big computer nerd. He was into the whole gaming and buying stuff online, cryptocurrencies and hacking, all this stuff that he always into. He's really big into torrents and sharing and all that kind of stuff. And he literally told me, he's like, dude, this Bitcoin thing is going to be huge. And I was like, and I researched it, I looked into it, I saw the price. It really made no sense at the time. Well, then a couple months later, a couple years later, it started to spike up. It jumped up pretty big. I think it went up to like $600, $700 at one point. And at that point, I was like, well, I'm definitely not going to buy it now because it's overpriced. Why would I want to buy the stock? So then after that, it ended up crashing down. There was some hacks. There was some stuff going on in the market. The Bitcoin just wasn't really working out. Nobody was really going to, legitimize it or try to figure out how to buy stuff with it. People were trying to buy stuff online, Silk Road, stuff like that, buying drugs and all kinds of weird stuff online. But overall, the Bitcoin was still kind of like a black market thing. Well, after that big crash, it kind of started to get a little bit more momentum. People started talking about it more. They started really pushing it. The whole idea of the fiat currency, the world market with the world currencies like the US dollar not being backed by anything and not really being real at all. Just the idea that the US says this dollar is worth this much amount. There was really no value to the US dollar other than the US saying what it's worth because there was no gold there anymore. And everybody sold off all their gold and gold prices went down, and then gold prices went up, and gold prices went down. The world governments are trying to keep the price of gold down, so it keeps their currency higher, and everyone basically values their currency off of the US dollar. So that's kind of the whole fear and the idea like, oh, well, if the US dollar crashes, then the overall market crashes, and everyone loses everything they have, and the world ends, and boom, doomsday. But the idea is that Bitcoin is the one savior because it's a cryptocurrency that is not backed by actual value of government, stuff like that. It's a peer-to-peer transaction, and it's all regulated with the idea that every transaction is recorded and everyone kind of knows every time a Bitcoin is spent. I can't really get into the fine details of it because I don't understand the exact meaning of it all. If you'd have bought Bitcoin back then 7 years ago when it was worth 0.003 cents, and at today's price of $2,700, you'd have $72 million. So not a bad investment. If you'd invested $100 7, 8 years ago on Bitcoin, you would now be a multi-millionaire off of $100. So the guy who bought a pizza 7 years ago with Bitcoin, he had 20,000 Bitcoins. He bought a pizza with it online. He ended up paying $20 million for pizza. Not bad. Not bad for the guy who bought the pizza. And maybe if he kept the Bitcoin, who knows? But overall, pretty insane. It's just one of those things. Like today, I look at Bitcoin as $2,700, and then I say, well, that's way too expensive. I'm not going to buy it at that point. And then a year from now, Bitcoin's $5,000, and it's just like this. There's really no way to know when the top is, where the bottom is, and you do your research, figure out what the best investment is. Do I think Bitcoin's a good buy right now? I don't think it's a good buy right now because there's a good chance it's going to pull back some. But I might be wrong. Maybe it just keeps on going. Maybe it breaks through that $3,000 mark. Broke through $2,000 and nobody really thought that it would get to that point. If you haven't done research on Bitcoin, just check it out. I'm not telling you by any means to go out and buy a Bitcoin or start investing in it, but kind of learn about it, get some ideas. There's a couple other cryptocurrencies that have been up big this year as well. This whole momentum and idea of buying cryptocurrencies to protect your money and have value in the future if the overall world fiat currency market kind of fails at some point once people stop wanting to buy U.S. Treasury bonds. So I guess we'll see what happens here. Maybe this time next year I'll be making another video talking about how I could have bought Bitcoin last year at $2,500 and now it's at $5,000. So who knows? Thought you guys might be interested in that little fun fact that if you would have bought $100 worth of Bitcoin 7 years ago, you would be a multi-millionaire now if you sold it today.